let's jump right into our next topic because I think this is going to be a polarizing one, maybe. So if you spend any time on Stack Overflow, you might know that ChatGPT answers have now been banned temporarily. But the big reason that they list the answers they were getting from ChatGPT were very fast to produce, look pretty correct, but are actually wrong.
There's a part of me that hopes that engineers in Stack Overflow are hopefully trying to leverage this technology themselves. ChatGPT, inherently flawed. It's like my 7-year-old nephew who will tell me the wrong answer with 100% confidence. That confidence is often the thing that you mentally look for. If someone says, I don't know, but I tried this and it worked for me, that's going to put me on edge of like, it worked, but maybe I would like a more confident answer. And you go, oh yeah, absolutely, you use this. And it's like, oh, okay, well that seems like they know what they're doing. I hope that there is someone working to solve I have a problem and I'm looking for someone to provide an answer for me, because my personal experiences on Stack Overflow have been relatively negative.
So I'm curious what you're looking for from ChatGPT there then, because it sounds like you want just a faster answer that is useless. Is that
so? I think that not. So it is good if the first answer, because again, Google, I think knowing how to operate Google is a developer skill that developers need to learn. I think that a lot of beginners will have questions that are, we look as trivial answers. And I think that some people do look at that as like, oh, this isn't worth my time answering, or someone who isn't very familiar with Stack Overflow. And I think Stack Overflow has gotten better at doing this to where, like, if you ask a question that is similar to another question that's been asked, it'll say, have you looked at this? But I think the easiest way to do this is to be like, hey, I'm this AI bot and you've asked this question on list comprehensions. Here are some really great resources on list comprehensions. And here are some other values. And this is where you can go look. And if you have any questions, here are some other areas to investigate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that anyone's disputing the fact that that would be super helpful. I think the issue arises when, right, what Stack Overflow's post here is explaining is that, here's a simple question. Okay, here's a simple answer provided by ChatGPT. By the way, it was also incorrect, right? And so, uh, we're not quite there, and I mean, I think part of this definitely exposes some kind of inherent flaws in all the volunteer driven nature of this, right? Everybody's right moderating these question queues and writing up these answers, um, mostly on a volunteer basis, and those sorts of systems are easy to overwhelm, right? Even without ChatGPT, right? You could have done a similar kind of automation. Maybe it's easier to detect right spam with previous technologies, but the big thing here is that right there were so many incorrect answers being given that they couldn't keep up with moderating it. Right? They're not saying that it was just that it was incorrect. It was that
it's an overload of incorrectness.
And we've talked about this sort of thing before, right? About technologies that can help with I think you brought up the idea of like, hey, explain to me what this code does, right? If we can do that well, that's great. But um, I think about this in combination with there are a bunch of Python libraries that are right import from Stack Overflow, right? So it's this idea of like from and there's more than one. I've seen at least a couple though that have syntax that looks like from Stack Overflow import merge sort, right? And it goes and it finds a Python implementation of merge sort in in a Stack Overflow answer, and it gives you that as a function. And right now it's these layers on layers of like we're automating more and more of this, and no one's checking that along the way, right? Of well, I copied this answer from Stack Overflow because it was the highest rated one. And how many of these like big security bugs have been like, oh well, it turns out this thing has existed for 15 years, and just it got through a code review, and no one really came back to look at it after that.
So there was a follow up that they did on Stack Overflow about kind of the why, and I wanted to read this because there was this moment where again Cynical J came out and was like, okay, but that second paragraph of Stack Overflow is a community built upon trust. And that's where like my eyes started to roll a little bit. But it says, the system relies on users to verify and validate contributions. And this is where it got interesting. That like second to last sentence, or that last sentence there, trust is broken when users copy and paste information into answers without validating the answer provided by GPT is correct. Which is a thing that I think that people do on Stack Overflow already just without using GPT. They just copy and paste an answer. Ensuring that the sources used in the answer are properly cited, a service that GPT does not provide. This was a thing that you and I talked about previously with some of these other tools, of that whether it's right or wrong is important, but if I have no way of verifying that data, I do think that transparency would help a lot in this case. I think that there are a lot of things that can be done better. And I, again, to me, this was almost not even a news topic because I knew that we both kind of agreed that it was like, okay, yeah, like it's not ready yet. You shouldn't be doing this. This is bad. This opens up so many questions, like clout-based question and answer services. I mean, it's page rank with human beings, and I don't really like that idea of like you can only provide answers if you're popular enough, to some effect. And this encourages this type of behavior. People to quickly become known for their Stack Overflow contributions. And again, that's not everybody. I'm not trying to say that everyone does this on Stack Overflow. I will say there have been times where I've known the answer to a problem and I've gone to try to answer it on Stack Overflow, and basically I've been told I'm not popular enough to provide this answer. And I'm like, that's dumb. So while I agree with their decision making, I have zero pity. Like I'm going to be honest. I don't feel bad that like, oh, they got bombarded with people who are just trying to buff their Stack Overflow score. And it's like, yeah, because you have to do that. Otherwise, it takes forever to become one of those people who can put on their resume, I've answered over 3,000 questions on Stack Overflow.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people list that on resumes.
Which is a weird flex, by the way.
It's a strange one. At the risk, or maybe with the desire of sounding like a grumpy old man here, what we're talking about here is we want a magic box where we can say, I want to be able to do this, and just tell me how, right? And the we have that. That's a library, right? This isn't new. There are plenty of libraries that are well tested, well maintained, and you know, artisanally handwritten. And that's one of the things that Python is known for is being batteries included and having a library for anything you want to do, right? So um, I think the bigger aspect here is really knowing how to ask for the thing that you want uh, rather than being able to write it from scratch, right? Because a lot of people have run into the same kind of problems. There aren't new problems.
I will show my age a little bit. It's not that bad. Um, I was in high school right when Wikipedia became the popular way for finding out information. And it was demonized. And it's like, instead, what we should be doing is teaching responsible use. Here's how you can utilize these tools that were designed to benefit you in a useful and helpful way, so that down the road, we don't have to go and backpedal on like, yeah, we used to say it was bad, but now we figured out how to use it and it's better. Let's just say we don't know how to effectively use it. We're still learning. Here are the things that we do know. Let's start teaching that as early as possible so that it's normalized and implemented faster. Because the longer that we demonize it, the slower that process takes.
Yeah, and my intention wasn't to say really throw out all computer assisted technologies here.
You
It's
heard it right
not
here. John wants to cancel. Yeah. We need to go back to writing Python on paper and then punching holes in a punch card machine and
the analogy made was basically fact checkers, right? Is like is is this the thing that we want it to be, right? Does this implementation do what it says on the tin? And when you offload all of the onus to right the people, because this isn't it's not a right technology in a vacuum problem. It's how it interacts with people. And so when you say, okay, well, here's 9,700 answers for how to sort a list that uh, and yeah, I'm being hyperbolic, but
according to them, you're not though. That's what I mean. That's what they're saying is like, oh, we got so many wrong answers at one time, we couldn't handle it.
it's hard to really look at that and say um, that right, from the outside, it's materially different from a coordinated attack on that system, right? And you see this in like political uh, commentary all the time, right? Like someone will rattle off these uh, multitude of what they claim are facts that end up being untrue, and right, you fill the conversation with, well, no, that's not how that works. That's not what that person said. That's not anything that has ever happened. And now you're so far down this rabbit hole of verifiably and verified to be false things that you've missed the thing that you were going for to begin with.
I agree with that. I also wonder if accuracy is the thing that they're looking for. Why do they keep all of the wrong answers submitted by humans on there as well?
That's a very fair question. And I can't speak for Stack Overflow's intention there, but I think at a kind of at a zoomed out look of the idea of this thing, right, is and any of this AI assisted coding, right? It's got to help more than it hurts, and it also has to not introduce new unchecked ways of failure, right?
Okay, talk about what you're doing behind the scenes with this then. Like, again, Stack Overflow is a wealth of knowledge. If Stack Overflow said like, hey, we want to work with OpenAI to help train this GPT model, they have a wealth of both good and bad answers. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this model didn't train on some of that data already. And this is where I'm like, what is the purpose of Stack Overflow? What are they saying their purpose is, but what is the purpose? Because if the purpose was to get the right answer, then they would, once an answer was verified, they should remove all other answers. If someone said that this is the answer. And I understand that it's not that easy because it's not always going to be the answer. In fact, sometimes I have figured out the answer to my problem by looking at the wrong answers. But if that's the case, what's the harm of letting ChatGPT in then? Because if people can learn from the wrong answers, well, then they can learn from ChatGPT. I just hope that what we're not doing is turning ChatGPT into the next Wikipedia where everybody wants to use it and everybody wants to see it improve, but then the services that could really help it improve kind of shut the door immediately.
Yeah, I mean, Wikipedia is also by no means perfect, right? There are plenty of useful articles that get deleted all the time. If you ever look at the like contribution stats, this is not like, you know, the whole of the knowledge of the world, right? It's a pretty small number of people, all things told, contributing the bulk of what's on there. And, you know, people get into these, you know, edit wars and you know, you get articles deleted because you're like, oh, well, this person isn't notable as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you liked it, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to catch more on this topic, go back and check out the live stream. We stream on Fridays at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern US time. And we call it our Python Community News Extra because we're bringing extra thought, extra opinion, and a whole lot of extra commentary from the chat on these topics. Also, if you want to catch more and more news throughout the week, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We're bringing the news as soon as we can find it directly to you. And of course, you can check out pythoncommunitynews.com for the podcast, newsletter, and more. That's going to be it for this one. Tune in next time. Take care.